Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Nick Zulovich of Cherokee Media Group. In today's webinar, Close More Deals and Negotiate Less, we're going to learn more about this topic from Stu Zalad and Jim Dodd from NADA Used Car Guide. But before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. First off, please make sure you've dialed in using the phone number provided in your communication email, or you're able to listen in via your PC speakers. We are recording today's webinar, and we'll make that recording and presentation to you available to you in the coming days. You'll be in listen-only mode for this webinar, but we will reserve some time after these gentlemen's presentations for a question and answer session. You can submit your questions at any time through the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. And if we aren't able to get to your question today, don't worry, because we'll forward them on to Stu and Jim and the team at NADA Used Car Guide so they can respond back to you directly via email. Lastly, if you have any difficulty during the webinar, please click on the hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel and we'll get to your question as quickly as possible. So now I'd like to introduce the experts for today's session. Stu Zalad brings a dealer-focused perspective and insight to his role as Director of Dealer Services for NADA Used Car Guide. He is responsible for presenting at industry events and contributing to the development of products and services to meet the changing dealer needs. Stu's experience includes more than 30 years as a GM dealer in Cleveland, Ohio, and Hilton Head, South Carolina. And additionally, he served on various NADA boards, as well as the chairperson of the Greater Cleveland and Ohio Automobile Dealers Association. Meanwhile, Jim Dodd, he joined NADA Used Car Guide in 2010, bringing more than 10 years of auto auction experience and a dealer-focused perspective to his role as the account executive for automotive dealers. At Southern Auto Auction, the nation's largest independently owned auction, Jim held various positions in sales and marketing. And Jim also served on the board of directors for the Connecticut Auto Dealers Association, representing the auction industry. So these two gentlemen have plenty to share with us today, and we're going to kick things off with Stu. Stu, the webinar is now yours.
Thanks very much, Nick. I appreciate the kind words and the introduction, and Jim and I are very happy to be here today to try to talk to and educate everyone about how different the appraisal process is and needs to be when you talk to the consumers today. And it's quite different from where it always has traditionally been, and I think after you see what we have to talk about, everybody should have a better understanding of not only how you need to change it, but also why it needs to be changed. And very quickly, let's just talk a little bit about what Jim and I are going to try to cover today. First of all, we're going to talk to you about what's changed, obviously, in car buying. And most of you out there, I'm sure, do it day in and day out, so probably have a very keen awareness of how much that has changed. You know, the consumer has also changed, and I'm sure everyone has an awareness of that as well, but we're going to talk about some of the pain points. The most important part for all of you, I think, is what's at stake for you, and then last but not least, Jim's going to show you a way that we believe will afford you an opportunity to close more of your deals while negotiating less. And if you can achieve that or achieve some of that with some of your customers, it's going to afford you a better profitability and a better opportunity to retain some gross profit. Having said that, let's talk about the dealer experience and how that has changed for consumers. I think most of you probably see this all the time, but we're trying to put, not we, but there's a lot of dealers out there today that are trying to put the square peg in the round hole. And it's just not going to work. It really isn't, ladies and gentlemen. I think for success of all, for the success of all of you, we as dealers and NADA as your trade association, we have to conform to the way those people want to buy automobiles. And it's a lot different. Here's some data and statistics that we've compiled that will talk to some of these differences about how their expectations have changed. Most of them want an extremely efficient purchase process. The number of visits before they purchase is actually on the rise again a little bit. It's up to about 3.9. Here's a statistic that is very important to the process that most of you have or want to try to improve. You have about 40 minutes to, one, gain the consumer's trust, and two, provide them with the information they need to make a buying decision. And last, but certainly not least, as we talk more about the younger buyers, the millennials, the Gen Ys, the Gen Xers, 54% of the people out there today, and this number will only increase over time, prefer to purchase without negotiations. That's a large percent, and we believe that percentage will continue to increase in the coming years. We've done some research and some studies about how satisfied or dissatisfied the consumer is with his appraisal process or her appraisal process, as the case may be. And if you look at these two bar graphs on the left, it's kind of amazing to us that in 2009, about 68% of the people were dissatisfied with how their car was appraised or how the end number was arrived at, whatever the case may be. And today, in 2014, that number has risen to 79%. At the same time, the overall market size has also increased, so you have to take both of those variables into consideration. We publish some data on public websites, including AutoTrader and our public site, and ask consumers some specific questions, and that's where this data came from. Here were their primary concerns, and some of these are very real, and you can understand why, but others, such as how long it took, let's go back to the 40 minutes, the lack of transparency, the lack of trust, the value part of it, that's understandable, because I don't think anybody out there ever believes that they're getting as much as they would like to get or as their research tells them they should get for a vehicle. So if you look at that, can we improve the transparency? You bet. Can we improve the time? I think we can do that as well. And if you do those two things, the trust will automatically increase, as will the experience that the consumer has on your showroom floor. Here's the levels of dissatisfaction, and if you circle, as we have on this chart, either no opinion or I'm unhappy, if you look at how long it took, there's a tremendous opportunity to shorten that time and make it more satisfied for the consumer. The pricing, again, is not a surprise, because there's about 26% of the people that say, okay, whatever that number is that we ended up with, I'm okay with that, and 74% of them are saying, boy, oh boy, I'm not so happy with that, or how did you get there, or whatever. That's part of the lack of transparency. And last but not least, and here's a tremendous opportunity, and this is what has to happen, that how I got to the value or how the dealership arrived at the number. If you take, again, neutral and dissatisfied, you're at 77%. That's a tremendous number. It's a great opportunity to make it better, and that's very easy to fix. It just has to happen with a better process and a more uniform process, and a process that creates more transparency. if you look at this yellow sticky note that we have up on this slide, you know, most appraisals look like this in some way, shape, or form. There's a number that's returned after somebody has looked at a vehicle other than the salesperson. Some stores today have gotten far better in terms of engaging the customer, and Jim will talk to that in a minute. But when you come to this kind of a number where you start at 99 and it's the back and forth and let's go back again and let's go back again and let's go back again till we get to where, you know, would you, if I could, would you? I mean, that's the oldest line in the book. I started doing this a long time ago and used that line for many, many years when the data was in far more in control of the dealer than it is today. So I want Jim to spend some time and talk to all of you about how we believe at NADA we've developed something that probably will, if you take a good look at it, it's something that will certainly create a better environment for you and make you some money as you go through it. Jim?
Thanks, Stu. I'm going to go over a few things with everybody, and again, we appreciate you taking the time to review this information with us and the process. But just going based on what Stu was indicating, if we look at this sticky note page, one of the interesting things that I've found in going all the dealerships is that these negotiations are frequently unchecked or certainly not calculated. So we actually look at this from a perspective of what's at stake for the dealer. And if we take the average dealer who does 100 appraisals every month, and of that converts 70% of those, and of the 70 that they convert, roughly 5 to 10 people are accepting their offer, and the average bump has been $500. They're essentially vaporizing $30,000 worth of gross profit every month. And when we started to really dial into this and take a look at how that's impacting the dealers and where it's not even being viewed, we realized that as dealers' profit margins are being compressed from an oversaturated, price-conscious market and a very stable and strong wholesale market, they tend to be getting compressed. Where are dealers able to make money anymore? And we think this is one of those areas that they're able to make money, again, by taking the variable out of the trade negotiation. So when we look at this, we obviously have to realize that instead of putting the appraisal as market analysis, we need to start separating it. And over the years, what we've done is we've utilized market data and market analytics as an appraisal, and they're not. It's the same as if you were to take an engagement ring to a jeweler. The jeweler would be appraising that ring, and if you took it to 3 jewelers, they would all be appraising it with their opinions and utilizing market research in order to hone in on that value. But every single one of those appraisals would have been presented to you, the customer, on a GIA certified document. And as we looked at that, we realized that that's the separation that needs to take place, and that's the separation that the consumer is looking for. They need a document, a detailed form that shows them what the value is and how that value was derived. They don't understand all the analytics that dealers use, but they need to have an idea that that is qualified by a well-known, trusted brand such as GIA. So that was the basis for doing the appraisal process and our new appraisal document. And if we go through the anatomy of an appraisal document, I think you'll understand how this is achieving the goal of adjusting consumers' expectations to what you feel the value of the vehicle is versus you having to adjust your value to meet their expectations. So if we look at the document, you can leverage the NADA brand. It's a brand that's well known and trusted. It's a source that is used by lenders throughout the country, and it provides that third-party validation that the consumer is looking for. It also gets you out of the hot seat. By having a document that fully details the vehicle information, including all of the installed options. Now this includes aftermarket options. You have the ability to add things such as remote starters and altered suspensions and things of that nature, which in a consumer's mind actually adds value to their vehicle, but in reality sometimes those detract from the value. But they want to know that they were taken into consideration. So having a full disclosure of the vehicle's information and any options on it is desirable. From there, detailing the condition of the vehicle is very important. So consumers will do an awful lot of research. We know that they do more than 10 hours of research to find the vehicle they're interested in. 9 times out of 10 when they walk through your door, they've already decided on the vehicle that they're interested in. Now they're working on deciding if this is the dealer they want to do business with and if the value of their trade is going to be what they expect it to be. So when they value their trade, oftentimes they don't take consideration into the condition of their vehicle. So this allows you the opportunity to help adjust that value based on its condition. And then certainly backing up the condition with the adjustments so that there's a correlation. If there's an adjustment for the body, then there needs to be some notation as to why that adjustment was created. One of the beautiful parts about this document is that you are in total control of the values. You determine what to adjust for and by how much. You're starting with an NADA value, but now you're able to adjust that value to reflect the vehicle's value in your market and on your dealership lot. And that's a very important area to be in. So full disclosure, and then if you need fourth-party validation, you have the capability in our Pro version to add additional market data from J.D. Power, Auto Trader, Manheim's MMR, and you certainly have the NADA weekly auction value in both of the versions of the appraisal suite. But it allows you, if that number supports the value that you've put on that vehicle, to add that fourth-party validation. Okay, and again, leveraging those brands. We do this all the time now. The only problem that we've had in the past is that when we do an appraisal and we search and we scour different resources such as MMR or NADA or KBB or whoever you go to, you're looking for somebody who has a brand that has a printed value that you can present to the customer to validate what you feel the car is worth. So all of that effort can be boiled down into one document that you create with that brand and the value that you believe the vehicle is worth. So that's where we are with creating an appraisal document and separating analytics from a document, and that allows you to stand by that appraisal. And if you have the ability to adjust that customer's expectations to what you feel the vehicle is worth and qualify it with a professional document, you can effectively reduce this negotiation. And what we're finding is dealers are finding about a 30% reduction, and in this scenario, that equals $9,000 in gross profits per month back to those dealerships. And that's a significant amount of money when you think about where are you looking to have profit potential in the future. And this is one of those areas. So we'll show you real quickly how easy it is to do this. We've got a vehicle that we've got a document on, and I'm just going to bring you into the appraisal system and just show you how this works. Now we've captured this vehicle, and we can use mobile technology to scan the VIN. We can use year, make, model, build on the desktops, however you want to use it. We do have capability in the software that will allow you user permissions so that if you want your salespeople to collect this information, which is generic information, they can be doing so without having access to the other areas or parameters of the application. So getting into the details of the vehicle, here's where we can add some of those aftermarket products such as remote starters. Maybe I'll put a spoiler on here. But that allows me to really get a detailed picture of the vehicle for the customer. If I go into my adjustments will automatically apply some generic adjustments that I've done down here for lube oil filter, detail, state inspection, and so forth. But then as I go through and I've adjusted for certain conditions of the vehicle and I've applied the value, I'm tallying up at the top exactly what my number is going to be on that vehicle. And I have a market comparison that keeps me in check to make sure that I'm not falling behind on any of these indicators. And if my option was to be $1,000 behind clean loan, well, right now I'm $2,200. I can easily go up here and change my starting value to average, and that puts me a little bit too far. So I'll go back to rough, and maybe I want to add $1,000 to the value of the vehicle, and I can do so in a manager's adjustment, put me exactly where I want to be, and I'm now $1,200 behind loan. It's that simple to adjust the values to what you need to be, but we always make sure that the dealer realizes if you're going to make an adjustment here, make sure that adjustment is qualified by condition. So if you don't have a condition, don't apply the adjustment, because that's going to lend the customer to ask questions of how you arrived at that value.
Once you even photograph those areas if they need to, right?
I'm sorry? Oh yeah, you can if you've got some detail of the body damage. I was doing an appraisal with a dealer last week, and you know the whole front end was damaged. We took images of it, you know, and that just helps internally to make sure everybody, because we know appraisals are taken. The customer usually is walking out, maybe coming back, and somebody else is there that didn't do the appraisal but didn't know. So this allows them to have information when that customer comes back in, and consistency. It also keeps it all in one place, which is the other big thing. Is a lot of times these appraisals end up in a stack of paper on somebody's desk, and the ones that age after a couple of weeks are forgotten. You know, we're always working on the most recent appraisals, the most opportunity. So here's our.
Go to the market summary. Take a look at the checklist real quick, Jim.
Okay, I just wanted to show that here's the adjustments now, and it was that easy to make the adjustment to get this number to 16.9 as opposed to the 15 or the 17.9 that we had before.
And that's a picture of the customer's vehicle, correct?
That's a picture of the vehicle, correct. So in the market summary, this is just going to help you, for those of you who do not have a set of analytics, this helps you understand what the market is bearing on this vehicle. And right now, if I change this to DC, I can look at how this vehicle is performing in that market on a 250-mile radius. And the way the analytics work, you know, for those of you who are familiar with vAuto and AutoTrader's not AutoTrader, DealerTrack or AAX and Red Bumper, you have various market indicators. In here, we work with vAuto's day supply, and that's pretty much a starting value to indicate to me whether this is a car that has demand in my market. It's a relevance of supply and demand, 74-day supply. And then Manheim gives me a mileage-adjusted value that shows me how that car is performing in the auction arena. And again, this is based on the mileage that I put on this vehicle, which was 101,000 miles. So that's based on 101,000 miles. If I need to go into the Manheim transactions, I can drill in here. We also have an auction value up at the top here, and this is very important. The weekly auction value is derived by AuctionNet. AuctionNet takes all transactions from Manheim, ADESA, and the SurfNet auctions. It too is mileage adjusted, but it's only for transactions in this 1 week range. So this week alone, that vehicle is doing 17.7 versus Manheim 16.9. So a difference of $800 to the plus. And that's important to know because this number can be volatile up or down. And in some cases, I've seen this number off by a couple of $1,000s as the market makes radical shifts here and there. And it allows you to stay on top of it. And again, going into AutoTrader, showing you what the market is asking price, the markets or your competitors' asking price of the similar vehicles. And then J.D. Power is showing you retail transactions. And this, to me, is the more important number because you really want to know before you get involved in a vehicle, what's the selling potential? What can I really expect to sell it for? If they're asking 24.5 miles in the 70 and they're getting 22.6 miles in the upper 50s, I've got to look at that with my vehicle at 101,000 miles, and I can drill into any of these transactions and see not only who my competitors are, what they're asking, and how far they are from me, but then how much have they sold those vehicles for with mileage similar to mine, and I can have a better informed decision of what to put on that vehicle when I go to the adjustment page and I bring that value right to where I want it to be. And I may look at this and say, you know what, I need to be 17,000 on that vehicle. I'll go to the adjustments and I'll bring that number. I'm right at 17,000. So that's the intent, is to create a document that is customized to you but fully informs the consumer as to how that value was arrived at. You'll notice it has to start with one of NADA's values, rough, average, or clean. You decide. We will put that value here by saying NADA's value is, and then all of these adjustments that you've determined will then work against that number to come up with a value that you feel the vehicle is worth. But all along, our intent is to allow you to leverage our brand to promote the number that you feel the vehicle is worth. All too often, and I'm sure, Stu, you can attest to this, I go into dealerships, and for years I heard, NADA is not writing the check. Well, you're correct. You're writing the check, so we're allowing you to adjust the value to where you feel it is. And that's all it's meant to do, is to help you adjust that consumer expectation down. If you're able to do that, all of this other stuff, you know, when you talk about negotiating away profits, becomes minimized, if not completely eliminated. These are the two versions, just so you have information as to what the differences are. I always tell everybody, it's pretty simple. The Pro version includes the analytics. Everything that we talked about, creating a document, creating that appraisal document, is all covered in the base appraisal. You also have the capability of managing the open appraisals, the pending appraisals, and certainly mining that information for future use. And that's all based in the basic product here. If anybody has any questions, let's open it up.
Jim, one thing real quick. Go back into the appraisal and just cover that customer, the questionnaire document.
Oh, sure.
We sort of left that out of the discussion, and it's a very important piece for a lot of reasons. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that, again, several people can be using the same tool working on the same car at the same time. So if a salesperson stays with the customer and someone else does the appraisal and you do not take the customer with you to that appraisal, this is some valuable information that you can capture. And again, it'll stay with that appraisal. So if somebody else goes back in later, you can review this and take a look at it. Go through this, Jim, real quickly.
That's a good point. In fact, Stu, if you open up on your computer, you're in the DC office, go ahead and open this record up, and you can make some modifications to this, and I'll refresh, and it'll show how this interacts dynamically in real time. But yeah, you really, I see a lot of dealers engage their salespeople with the consumer in this area, where they'll collect the customer information, the vehicle, and the checklist, and the handoff, once the vehicle is there, goes to the adjuster or the manager, who would then take their iPad out to the vehicle and maybe rescan it to make sure the VIN is correct and the year, make, model are correct. But all along, while the adjuster is out working in these areas, the market summary, the adjustment, and the vehicle history report, Carfax Auto Check report, the consumer can be engaged with the salesperson and filling the extra information out on their vehicle. And by keeping that consumer engaged, it helps make the process feel faster. It allows them to have input, and they feel as though they've contributed to the value of their vehicle. And it all helps to make this transparent process eliminate the need to negotiate, hitting that 54% of consumers who don't like to negotiate. I'll go ahead and refresh. Did you make any changes in there, Steve?
I'm just doing it right now.
Oh, okay, so go ahead and update it, and we can go back and we'll see that. But again, it's very important if you have a process. This is designed to accommodate different processes in different dealerships, and I've seen a lot of different ways in which it's being used. I try to share the best practices as they've been shared with me. But one of the big things that we see is going forward, that consumer having to be engaged in the process is becoming more and more apparent because information, again, we're a hypersensitive information society right now.
Jim, I adjusted it $250.
Oh, you went in and made adjustments to the, oh, okay, so I'll just go to the appraisal. And with that hypersensitivity of information, what you'll find is that consumers will be in your showroom, and they will be, if left unattended or unengaged, they will be using their smartphone technology or tablet technology to find alternatives. And one of the things, Stu, you'd mentioned in the presentation earlier on, number of dealerships that consumers are visiting, and this number fluctuates. I mean, it's usually bopping between 1.5 to 3 or 4, and it goes up and down pretty regularly.
That's correct.
Either way, and it's starting to go back down again, and that's probably a more critical element. If it gets back down to 1.5 again, or 1.9, which it was at last year, then if that consumer uses that digital technology in your showroom and is dissatisfied with what they got, they found an alternative, they leave your showroom, chances are they're not coming back because they're only going to 1.5 dealership for purchasing. And the only reason they're going to multiple dealerships is to size up the dealership. Is this where I want to do business? Did I get treated fairly? It's all about the experience because we know they've already decided primarily on the car prior to going out and looking at them. They're doing 10.5 hours or more research online on the vehicle that they're looking to purchase. They're finding the car. They're then going to size up the dealership. And this part of the process is the one area where you can have so much volatility and really blow apart a deal at the very end. And how often does that happen? You know, the customer says, yes, I'm interested in this car. We get them interested in the car. Are you going to trade in anything? No, we're going to negotiate price. We've now created a ceiling. And all of a sudden a trade comes into play. And you're having to manipulate that trade value in order to protect your gross. Well, what better way to adjust that customer's expectation down and protect your gross?
Jim, thanks. That's a great spot to kind of shift gears a little bit and thank everybody for spending 35 or 40 minutes with us today. And I'm sure that there's probably some questions out there. Let me say one thing first, and then I'll give it back to Nick, and he can provide us with any questions that might have arisen during this presentation. There's one significant difference between what we've done besides the affordability part of it. I mean, I think if you compare what we have created for everyone, you'll find that it's priced well below comparable, if there is a comparable, and we don't believe there is, but if there is anything that's close to this in the marketplace, probably is significantly more money. And the reason we were able to do that, and here's the difference, everything that we do and everything that we sell at NADA for members and actually independents as well, and in other segments of the market, insurance and lenders and so on and so forth, every dollar that is generated is returned to the National Automobile Dealers Association to again be used to better represent you in all the areas that we need to be involved in, such as CFPB, all the regulatory stuff that's going on day in and day out, the representation with your OEMs and manufacturers on an ongoing quarterly basis to deal with dealer attitude surveys and things of that nature. All of our money goes back to help all of you. That's a significant difference between us and the competition, and might be a reason for you to take a little deeper look at what we have to offer at times. So I guess closing with that, we certainly appreciate your time. We think we've come up with a reasonable solution and probably something that you ought to try. I will tell you before Nick starts the question and answer, we do provide an opportunity for anybody to try this product at no charge for a period of time. And if you just reach out to either Jim or myself, we can set that license up for you in a short period of time and conduct an individual webinar to go over the benefits and features so all your staff is on the same page. With that, Nick, again, thanks for everybody's time, and I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Excellent job yet again, gentlemen. And just a reminder that we are recording today's webinar, so keep watch of your inbox in the coming days for a link to the presentation that Stu and Jim just completed, so you can review what they had shared or share it with other managers at your store if you are considering making a change or adding this to your toolbox. And that's one of the first questions that came in, gentlemen, is that a dealer is already using a similar product and is wondering why he should make the switch. Again, just to reiterate one of the last points you made, gentlemen, is what differentiates this tool from others that might be available?
Go ahead, Jim.
One of the main things that differentiates this is the separation of analytics with an appraisal document, something that is really geared for consumer use. And I think in my experience of what's out in the marketplace, there really isn't anything like this that allows the dealer to control the value of the trade number and provide them with a professional document to present that number to the consumer. There's really nothing out there that does that. The other products either they control the number and they don't have that consumer brand awareness that NADA can bring for the dealer. So I think there's a lot of differences. And again, the main one is analytics do absolutely nothing to sell the value to the consumer. They're only there for you to have a comfort zone that you're right on the value of that vehicle. We're trying to find and provide a way for dealers to get that number agreed upon by the consumer.
Excellent, Jim. Excellent. Thank you for that explanation. Another question that's come up, and don't hesitate to use the questions box on the platform to submit yours, is I believe both of you had mentioned that there could be multiple users of the platform simultaneously. Does one of those users have to be at the desk in the showroom, or are there mobile device capabilities? Just refresh the multiple user elements, as well as if there's any mobile capabilities.
Stu, I'll let you talk on this, but I'm going to show how that user permission is actually granted.
Great. We have this designed both for tablet use and desktop, so there's full mobility, and we also have a way to connect it to iPhones and to droids to basically scan a VIN and save it and then come back in and work the deal at the desk. You know, a long time ago when I first started, one of my very early mentors told me that selling cars is a sit-down business, not a stand-up business, and I think that is still true today. So the idea would be, Nick and listeners, yeah, Jim is on a screen here that will demonstrate how the dealership can control the availability to maneuver through the product depending on what each individual needs and doesn't need. And then the other answer is yes, we've designed this to fit any tablet application as well as both Android and iOS. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, having the user permissions here allows you to set pre-access levels such as sales. So again, they can collect information on the customer, the vehicle, and the checklist, which are common fields, but not have access to the market or the adjustments or even any of the reports or the quick book out. But I can customize this if I happen to have a salesperson that I am elevating to a new level that I'm going to allow access to the market. They still can't make adjustments on them, but they can certainly preview the market and get a sense and a feel for how those analytics might be applied to the appraisal document. And then as I move forward, I can then certainly grant them access to do adjustments, or if we're moving somebody into an F&I, I might want to grant them the quick book out so that they can pull up their reports for the lenders. And that just allows you to manage who can use what part of this program and broadens the use of it to incorporate all different levels of your dealership so that we are able to engage the consumer at multiple points or from start to finish in the appraisal process.
Excellent explanations, gentlemen. Again, Stu Zalid and Jim Dodd with NADA Used Car Guide talking about the solution that can help enhance your appraisals. As mentioned, I think you touched on it, Stu, is there is a free trial available of the tool? How can dealers get a hold of that? What's the time frame as far as being able to get set up, and how long can they kick the tires and try the solution out?
Go ahead, Jim.
We can provide a free trial. Usually we set that, we give them full access to the pro version for a week. Just contact Stu or I. We'll set up a license, and we prefer to work with you on the initial setup to get all of your defaults properly prepared, putting your salespeople in, and then bringing you through a webinar one-on-one to just show you how to implement this, make sure you've got your mobile devices with the app on it, and then how everything works together. What we have found, and what I have found especially, is anybody who does take advantage of that typically will have paid for the use of this for the year in that week's trial by not negotiating on several deals that would cost them $1,000 or $2,000 in lost profit. So it's kind of
one
a
other thing too. If the volume is such that you need a little bit longer than a week's time, we're more than willing to work with anybody and do what's right for you. Again, you know, we basically are your employees. So if you're in a low volume type of operation and you're not going to have sufficient time to evaluate this in a week, we'll extend that. It's no big deal.
Sure. Oh, sure.
And again, what's the typical learning curve that you've experienced as far as how long it takes dealers to get comfortable with the solution and really be able to take advantage of all its capabilities?
Good question.
It's a pretty steep ramp up. I mean, it happens very quickly. I'm probably saying that incorrectly, but it's something that when we started with version 1, and this is the second iteration of that, you know, we did a lot of dealer research before we started this, and we heard, you know, make it easy to operate because the skill sets are varying. We have dealers with all different types of skill sets successfully using it, and really with about a 30 or 45 minutes of a webinar and trying it and using it. You can't break it, so you can push any button you want and it's not going to break. It's probably, you know, less than a couple of days. Would you agree with that, Jim?
Yeah, actually, I think usually it's that day that the users are really comfortable in developing that custom application or custom document. What I find interesting is once they realize what this can do, it often turns into them changing some of the old operations on how they would have conducted appraisals before in their dealership, and that's the learning curve that's usually about like 30 days. It's not using this is almost instantaneous, but putting it into process, and then they start to adjust how they conduct appraisals because of what this can do. That tends to be about a 30-day learning curve.
And that's the goal. I mean, the goal is to change and improve, not, you know, to improve it, to improve how it's done. And if you do that improvement, you're going to make more dollars and cents. It's going to happen.
It goes back to our discussion on the Apple product. You know, it's all about the user experience.
Very correct.
Excellent, excellent. Well, That's Stu Zalad and Jim Dodd with NADA Used Car Guide talking about their appraisal tool with us today. And just in our closing segment here, next week is Thanksgiving, and before we know it, it'll be really into the holiday season and the close of the year. I guess just Jim, we'll begin with you, and Stu, if you could close this out. Just any lasting final points wanted to emphasize of either about the tool or just to close the year strong in general?
Well, again, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time today to review this. We feel very strongly in the need to adjust to consumer buying behavior. We think we've got a great opportunity for dealers to take advantage of those positive changes and be profitable in the interim.
I will echo what Jim just said, and my added comments would be very brief. But as we know, in today's world, all your OEMs continue to squeeze margin, and obviously the SARS rate is going up, so your new car volume is going up, which helps overcome some of that in terms of total gross. But the real opportunity exists, we believe, in adding to how your used cars are merchandised and sold, as well as, and to do a better job of that, you have to take them in at a market reflective value without giving up too much, and as Jim rightfully said, adjust the consumer's expectations as opposed to adjusting your values at times. And this product, with the backing of the National Automobile Dealers Association, will get you across that finish line and certainly create a better variable operation. It'll make it easier for the people using that have to use it day in and day out, and certainly increase your CSI and your customer showroom experience, and you'll close more deals. And with that, I'd like to wish everybody a very, very, very happy Thanksgiving and a great holiday season. Please feel free to reach out to either Jim or myself. We'll be happy to help you in any way we can. And Nick, thanks again for all the help and support from Auto Remarketing. We really appreciate that as well.
It is a pleasure, and appreciate the opportunity to work with NADA Used Car Guide on these educational sessions. As indicated there on the screen, the contact information for both Stu and Jim is right there, so to definitely take advantage of what the solution can do for your store. So thank you so much for joining us. Keep watch of a message coming soon with a recording of today's session, so you can review the great material and share it with others at your store. So for Nick, I'm Nick Zulovich from Cherokee Media Group. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to connecting with you again.